So this is my current cinema camera rig for 2021. Now I've set this up just how I'd like it for the broadest range of things, and this is what I would call the neutral position for my camera. What I mean by a neutral position is that it's ready for me for the broadest range of uses that I have. Now, at the moment, a lot of what I shoot is documentary style stuff and corporate commercial work. We shoot an interview and some B-roll shots. And so that's how I set my camera up in its neutral position. So these types of shoots are the kind where it's just me, a solo operator. I need to be able to do audio and I need to be able to see what I'm doing clearly. So I keep my rig pretty lightweight and very flexible. Now, every shoot is very, very different. There's a whole range of things that affect how you work and what you need as a cinematographer for a gig. And so this camera setup is not the be all and end all. And you shouldn't be looking at this video thinking that you need exactly what I have because it works for my particular situation, but you might get some ideas for what might work for your camera rig. So having a little look around the rig, at the core we have the Sony FS7. This is just the Mark I, which I picked up last year. And this is a great camera. It produces a really nice image, I think. It's a few years old now, but it really stands up in my opinion. The image is really easy to work with. It's a great codec, which edits really easily. The cards are durable. They transfer really quickly. Got inbuilt ND filters, built-in XLR audio, and it's a form factor that works really well for the type of work I'm doing. I've come from mainly using DSLRs and mirrorless cameras for most of my career, but the last few years I've been moving into more of this style of camera and spent a bit of time with the Sony FS5, which is like the baby brother to this camera. But I decided to go for the FS7 because it's a lot easier to work with. You don't need an external monitor to record things, and the codec out of the camera is really easy to work with. And I just prefer the form factor a bit better. So while this isn't the most exciting camera, it's a really good camera for me and what I'm doing, and it was affordable. I didn't want to go into a whole stack of debt getting a camera that I'll use infrequently, even if it's much nicer, because in the end, it's not the camera that gets you jobs. So if I have a job that needs a fancier camera or a better looking camera or a certain type, I'll get that camera for that job from a rental house. I don't need to own it. But this camera is something that I can use on a whole stack of jobs more frequently. So one of the first things I added to the top here was this small rig cheese plate, which allows me to mount different things in different locations, which is super handy. And then coming out of there, I have this small rig articulating arm, which is a little bit different to the traditional magic arms that I used to use. And I find this really great. So it's a whole series of ball joints. And I find that it's really sturdy and allows you to move the monitor to wherever you need it, which is pretty great compared to a magic arm, which I find tend to droop, even if I get expensive ones or whatever. They always seem to just not quite work how I want them to. Whereas this is almost like a gorilla pod crossed with a magic arm, and it's pretty great. I find that it works really well. So up on top here, we have a Feel World 7-inch monitor. So it's a relatively inexpensive model, but it's really bright and it has SDI input, which is great for this camera. And I find it just works really well. For me, it's lightweight, and compared to a small HD, it's definitely not going to be the quality level of that, but it works for me in this current configuration. And being on this articulating arm, I can either have it sort of down here for a standard sort of filming position, or bring it closer. Maybe if I was going handheld, down low, I might want it like that. There's just lots of options. It's easy to move around. You can do all sorts of funny things. And it also allows me to get it out of the way for when I put it into my bag. In my rig, I also keep the standard FS7 monitor on here, which I keep the loop on, which the loop's not great, but it's great to have the option to look through an eyepiece if it's really sunny outside. Even though this screen's really bright, nothing beats being able to see a shaded view. So I keep that on there, and if I go onto my shoulder, it's nice just to have that screen there. So on the back of the camera here, I also have a little rod mount mounted to my cheese plate. That allows me to put the standard viewfinder from the FS7 on the back here using its built-in rod, and then I can move it around, maybe have it off to the side like this, and maybe if I was working with a client or a director, they can view that monitor, or maybe if this screen needs to be facing this way for some reason and I'm sitting over here to conduct an interview, maybe I'm doing a solo interview shoot, I have that screen available. So it's really handy just having a little mounting point, and I'm sure I could think of other things to use it for if a case arose. and it's easy as to put it back where it came from, up the front of the camera, which is where I keep it most of the time. Staying on this side of the camera, I also have this wooden small rig handle and a short articulating arm, which I find gives me most of what I need, but to be honest, I would love the traditional Sony hand grip that comes with the FS7 and a shape arm for it, but my FS7 didn't come with that remote control, so I'm still trying to track one down. But for now, this does a really good job for me and allows me to do most of what I want to achieve with the camera. Coming off the cheese plate on the top here, I've got a few different mounting points. So currently I'm using the Rode Wireless Go lapel as my standard that I keep on the camera. So I just mount the receiver onto one of these cold shoes that I've mounted on the side here, which fits really nicely in there. And then I keep one of the receivers in the other cold shoe that I have here. Or if I need two wireless lapels, I'll mount the other receiver here. And then they just plug into the XLR ports here. And I just have a 3.5 to XLR adapter. And I also have on board this Rode NTG2 microphone, which isn't the best, isn't the worst. It's a nice middle ground microphone. It's a little bit of a wider area that it covers, which is good for an on-camera microphone. In most situations, you're going to have a much better source of audio than the onboard. But when you're just doing a run and gun shoot and you just want nice audio available for your B-roll or whatever it is, it's good to have a nice microphone. And on the microphone, I have this windshield, which just helps to keep the audio clean as well. From the back of the microphone, I just have a small XLR cable, which I keep neatly tied up with some Velcro straps. The standard lens that I keep on this camera is my Sony 24-70 f2.8 G Master lens, which is a good all-rounder. It's not particularly wide on this Super 35 camera, but it's a really nice looking lens and it does the job for most things. If I know that I'm going to be doing lots of handheld work or shoulder work, I might default instead to the Canon 24-105, which is a stabilized lens, and I use the Metabone Speed Booster with that lens. Having a zoom lens is really handy for a lot of the type of work I'm doing. I'm moving fairly fast, so I don't necessarily have the time to be changing prime lenses. And maybe I will use prime lenses on a shoot, but the zoom lens will allow me to figure out what focal length I want, and then I can switch to the right lens without having to change 5 times. Now, something that makes this rig work really well for me is the Core SWX Nano batteries, which are a Sony BPU battery, which is the type that this camera takes natively, but it has a D-tap power out, which I run a cable to my monitor with. And it also has a USB out, which I could use to charge something like my Rode Wireless Go or anything else if I needed to. And these batteries are really great. They're a super high capacity, and being able to power my monitor with it too just helps to keep my rig nice and light and simple. And I don't need to worry about having a big V-lock plate, which would be great for some situations, but for my compact, everyday sort of setup, this works really well for me. So something that I don't keep on the camera all the time, but I have available is this here, which is my Zacuto shoulder rig with VCT plate. And this is really great if I need to do a lot of shoulder work on a particular shoot day, but all in all, it's quite heavy. And I find that just using the camera as it is on my shoulder works for a lot of situations. I don't do a lot of shoulder work, but when a job calls for it, this is really helpful. It's really comfortable. It's nice to hold. It also has rods on the front of it, which is great if I need to mount a matte box or something like that. But I typically don't mount a matte box or a follow focus for the types of shoots that I'm doing day to day. So this stays off the camera for the most part. So the way that I have the camera set up, I can still use the top handle, which is the way that I really like to use the camera. I can mount it on my shoulder, and that works really well for me for a lot of the work that I'm doing. And if I was doing a shoot that didn't require audio, I'd simply take the microphone and the lapels off, and I might even take the side viewfinder off and just keep the one monitor on there, especially if I was doing a lot of handheld work. So this is just my baseline neutral position for my camera, and I adjust it as needed to suit the shoot that I'm doing to get the best results. So this here is the bag that I carry my camera rig in. It allows me to put the whole rig in without breaking it down at all, which is really handy, especially when you just want to get into a shoot and pull your camera out and start working with it really quickly without needing to set it up or break it down at the end of the shoot. So I can fit the whole camera in here. All I need to do is put the monitor down and it fits in. So in here, I keep my camera, obviously. I have my batteries and my charger, my cards, accessories I might need, my audio gear. I'll fit an XLR cable in there. And usually I fit maybe another 2 lenses and even a second smaller mirrorless camera body. So in this one bag, I'm able to fit most of what I need for a shoot outside of stands and lighting, which is pretty great. So that's a quick look at my cinema camera rig. It's a pretty quick video, I know, and I haven't really gone into too much detail, but hopefully you get some ideas for what you might be able to implement into your own camera rig or see something you haven't seen before. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. So something I forgot to mention in the main part of the video is bongo ties. So bongo ties are these little elastic bands with a little wooden connector on them, and they're just a really simple way to manage cables. You can tighten them nice and tight, and it's just a great way to keep your cables from flapping around everywhere, especially when you're going handheld. So look into them if you haven't already.